almost. I'd say everyone has almost faced racism at one point in their life. But like that, like people saying that you can't do it, it was never, none of that though, racism or people, bogging down on you, it was never the motivation to become it. Like, I'm going to show them. It was like, I knew it. It was in there. It's always in the back of your head. Like if someone says,
subconscious.
Yeah, it's in the subconscious. Like, oh well, that's how people think about me. Cool. But that was never the motivation. My motivation was always, oh, this is a really good story. I have to tell the story.
What's up, guys? This is Vancouver Hustlers podcast, where we get people on with a grind and a story. I'm your host, Joshua Adera.
And I'm your co-host, Umar Khan. Today we have Inderveer Sodhi. He's a 19-year-old Canadian filmmaker, music composer, and actor. He spent his time in high school creating short films, musical scores, and performing in concerts. After receiving admission to Berklee College of Music in Boston, Massachusetts, he dropped out to release his debut.
Keep going.
Was it Boston?
I know, I laughed because like he got in, then he dropped out.
Yeah, dude, this guy, like, we'll dive into that. So he dropped out to release his debut album Carnival, which is on Spotify,
everywhere.
Everywhere. And he took 2 years to produce that album, so it's pretty tight. The project's amazing, dude. That project really emphasized on his heartbreak, and now Inderveer's on his journey of producing his first featured film, Monster, which is set to be released in 2019. Mm-hmm. Inder, welcome.
Thank you.
Inder, talk about Carnival.
Okay, so have both of you heard it or just you?
No, I haven't heard it yet.
I've heard it.
You've heard it?
What do you think?
It's freaking amazing, dude. Really, bro. Like we were talking about this off camera, but when I first saw it, you told me about it, right? Cause a lot of my friends made music in the past. Some really good music, some really good, but some like it's nice, but it's not professional. Mm-hmm. So pre-assumptions. But when I listened to it, it was so clean, man.
Thank you.
The first track, what was it? Coolest Girl.
Mm-hmm.
That was freaking dope, dude. Freaking dope. I had a question about Coolest Girl.
Yeah.
What grade was that, dude? Because you're talking about class and...
Yeah.
I'm assuming these are all true stories.
Yeah. The whole album is like literally my life just put into an album.
Bro, you gotta listen to it.
I gotta listen.
Yeah. I'm surprised that like you really like that because it's funny. So many people who've listened to the album, that one track always stands out, and I wouldn't think it would because it's not like it doesn't have that hip hop drum.
Yeah.
It doesn't have like that. It has like this French kind of style to it.
It does. It has that old school vibe.
Old school, yeah.
Dude, but you know what? The best part was it was real.
When
you listen to the lyrics, because for me personally, I don't just listen to the music for the beat, but when you listen to the lyrics, dude, and then you could tell, whoa, this guy's... You could tell when people are fronting or lying or exaggerating. I'm like, this shit sounds real, dude.
Yeah.
It's freaking awesome. But what grade was that, dude?
So I started the album in the middle of grade 12.
Middle of grade 12.
So from the middle of grade 12, and then I graduated, and then about a year out of high school, so the album was finished last summer.
Okay.
So it's like 2 years, 1.5 years. So it was just out of it, in finishing high school and just out of it. And that's also when I had like my first heartbreak, and then that was sort of when I started working on it. So you can kind of see how it's like it has that childish, like in class and kind of thing, and then it goes into, and it gets more and more, I guess more destructive, and it gets more mature as well throughout the album. So throughout the songs, yeah.
Definitely, dude. That was really cool.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, that song wasn't the first song I made when I was making the album. Some of the first songs that were made were actually later in the end of the album. Yeah, that songs were made later on.
And that's what I was gonna say, dude. The structure of the album, because for me, when I listen to albums, I respect the artist. I like to listen from sequence, right? Because I'm assuming you've laid it out in a certain way because that's how you want people to perceive it.
Nights and nights just rewriting the track list.
Bro, and that whole everything about it, the way the skits transitioned into the next song, the intro, the end, bro. The end was amazing too, man. Because I think the end, or was it the third last song, had the same beat from the first song, right?
Yeah.
That was freaking cool.
Yeah, it was reimagining the same song.
That was freaking so cool,
It was
bro.
essentially like what, that song is Platinum Dream.
Yeah.
And it's like, that song was sort of trying to say something, and then I redid it to say like how my thoughts on the same situation have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the first skit, dude, and I don't mean to leave you out.
No,
but Thorn, right?
Yeah.
Was that a story of you? Or was that a story of a friend?
No, that was a story of the girl that I really liked.
Oh.
Yeah. It can't be me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't be the guy in that skit. It's sort of like all the songs are made by me, and the skits are kind of like found audio footage of like conversations,
Yeah.
And it's like, I wouldn't know the exact dialogue, but
the girl that said that she was referring to you, the guy she broke your heart.
Yeah. She's referring to me. They're talking about me, not in front of me, and it's like that found footage kind of thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and yeah.
Yeah, dude, because like that shit was cold, bro.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like when you listen to something and you're like, whoa, what'd she just say? And you gotta rewind it, bro.
Yeah.
That was one of those, dude. That was amazing what you did, man.
There's 2 parts to that skit.
Yeah, the second part was when she basically hooks up with the guy.
Yeah, and it's like, if you really dig deep into it, like sort of, it's really deep and complex, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. No, please. I feel like you want to dig deep into it. Explain to us.
Yeah, it's kind of, so the album, from beginning to end, you sort of see, like, and I think it's like the story of a lot of guys when like you like a girl, and then as time goes on, whether she breaks your heart or not, like sometimes, not in every situation, but like you find more and more about her, and you kind of always reflect, man, like I was so blind, like, you know. And it's that same thing with her, which is like she was blind to this other guy, you know, as like someone she could trust and talk to. So it's like not really making her look bad or me look bad. It was kind of saying there's 2 similar stories on both sides of the coin, you know.
And then what we probably didn't understand about the second skit was the voices in her head, I guess, was repeating from the guy what he was saying. Was that like in a sense that the guy's using her, or like what was that?
Because there's only 2 people in the skits, right?
Yeah.
There's the girl,
and
then there's the guy.
Yeah.
And the guy's not me. But I didn't understand, like, voices in her head.
Because there was a part where like the pitches were lowered and it was stuff repeating.
Oh, I'm glad you noticed that. A lot of people listen to it and I'm like, did they notice the voices went lower? That was sort of like a more artistic thing to make him sound more monstrous, like kind of like a horror movie at points. Like, it's like, you know, I don't know who did this. I think Eminem did this once on an album where like, if you guys have heard Relapse, there's this song in Relapse where he goes to, it's basically about him after being off the drugs and stuff and addiction, and he goes to the doctor and he's talking to the doctor. It's a skit, right? And the skit will slowly evolve into the doctor sounding like monstrous, and he's like, no, go back on drugs. It's kind of like that thing where it's like this guy's voice, which sounds very sweet, right? It turns like, the further she goes into him, it like gets monstrous, more monstrous,
Okay, and then towards the end, she starts resisting. So is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it's basically her also realizing it. Like, she's not, it's kind of like her being unaware, like me being unaware in the beginning of liking this girl. And as I'm going through my journey, I'm becoming more aware, and she's becoming more aware. And as she's resisting, he sort of, like, the skit is basically like things that you hear that happen at school, or like you hear these things and they're like gossips and rumors, and I'm just making it real. Of like, this one like situation you hear like, oh, you know what happened, like that girl, like this happened to her and that happened to her. So that's what the skit was trying to do. Like, it's her resisting, and it's not really trying to say one thing or the other, like this happened, but it's more the sense that it's kind of like a dramatic thing where it's like, oh, she could have been with that good guy, but like she just, you know.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's creative.
You guys are like going into it, man. I gotta listen to it.
I also feel like me talking about it is not a. It's kind of because like I feel everyone interprets it their own way. It's like me saying it. I don't want to be like, this is the definitive answer. You know.
Yeah. That's exactly.
It's more about the feeling I created.
Exactly.
And you interpret the feeling how you.
That's the thing. Because like every song, right? Mm-hmm. You imagine it. Well, the listener imagines it. Yeah. In their perception.
Yeah, right? There's like so many songs. And then I'll be like, oh, it's about this, and then I actually read the lyrics and it's about something else, and I just interpreted that the whole time. Yeah.
Nice. I know you have a few questions. So
and I was just gonna I was gonna talk to you about. So you're doing a movie called Monster. Tell us a bit about that.
So Monster is a film that's based on the gang violence scene here in Surrey, but there's so many things that make it disconnected from a lot of movies that try to do that, who try to cover the gang violence scene, maybe in Surrey and other parts of BC. One thing is that it's not a documentary. We didn't want to do a documentary. I say we, it's like I didn't want to do a documentary, because documentaries are like really enjoyable for people who enjoy documentaries, but most people like don't like documentaries. And the other thing is like we didn't want to focus on things that are like objective, like the facts of drugs, abuse, and violence. In the film, there's not a lot of focus on them being part of the world or the actions, like the drug dealing, or you know, or the recruitment of new people in a gang. It's more, the film is a drama, and I knew that I was going to do that from the beginning, because like dramas focus on people and their lives, you know, and that's what people connect with when you watch a film. It makes you empathetic, and the whole idea behind why I wanted to make this movie was, so many times you like see the front page and there's these faces of these people who've been arrested, who have died in a shooting, and so you look at it, you might feel bad, and then like you forget about it a week after, right?
Yeah.
And the film is like literally trying to take those faces and trying to give them, show you the backstory of that.
Yeah.
And there's so many different types of stories. So the other part of the film is that it's an ensemble film. There's like 15 characters in it.
Yeah.
Where you see the relationships they have with each other, and you're just digging deep into the conversations they have privately, what their lifestyle is like, and you sort of, it's like I'm taking the camera into a place that most people don't go.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's a cool thing, dude.
Interesting.
When I really stalked you, dude. So when I seen each individual post of how you give all your kind of your character segments, right?
Yeah.
You can tell it's like you've took in the stereotype of this community, and you've given that stereotype a story. So now when you see that stereotype, that's a perception.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Like,
it's. When you see that campaign teaser, like that's not even our teaser or a trailer, it's more like a campaign video, but it's still like is a glimpse into the film. It's like if you just pause and you just look at their face, there's like, you think of that stereotype right away, right? Like, oh, she's this, he's that, he's a Jack, he's that, right? Yeah. But as soon as they start talking, it like just it humanizes them. Yeah. At some point you're almost like, yo, like I've probably talked like that at one point, or I've seen people like that, right? And that's just kind of trying to make it more real. Yeah.
Plus, you know what I feel like? I don't know if you're doing this. Sorry, this will be from outside.
No, I love hearing this one.
But it looks like. Have you ever watched a movie where like the movies focus on the bad guy? What's the proper word? Antagonist. Where the film is focused on the antagonist, and then from their point of view, now you're like, whoa, he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
So I feel like
that's exactly what the film is. It's awesome. Literally so that's what I was talking to my team about. I'm like, there's no one here that can say I'm playing the hero and you're playing the villain. It's like everyone here is playing villains, and it's like, but no, I'm just joking. But everyone's playing. No one's it's not a black and white film saying like, this is bad, this is wrong. Everyone's just playing a human in a sense, and it's a very gray film. It's not pointing out anything. Even the film, while I can't talk about the story, I can say that ultimately in the film the film never says like, oh, this was the reason that they became this, or this is this one thing is what needs to be stopped. It's so black, it's so gray. It's like when you watch the film, you're gonna be like, oh wow, like these things are so normal, and just it's really hard to pinpoint anyone as being the negative person in the film.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude,
interesting.
I mean, there's still a protagonist in the film, which is my character. I mean, the main character, like that you see through the film, but technically speaking, he would be looked upon as like a villain. Even if you watch the film, you're like, wow, he's like a bad guy, but he's not really a bad guy, and nor is anyone around him.
That's what I was gonna say. We were actually talking yesterday to Elias Barber, right? And we were talking about how the ego inside of us is not necessarily a bad thing. It's more so of the system and society we're living in that perceives the ego as a bad thing. Yeah. So if you grow up in a certain type of community, right, you're gonna be doing your thing. But if another community sees you, they might be thinking you're doing the wrong thing because that's not what they do here. So in each case, even though they're playing the bad guy, they're not really the bad guy. They're the good guy because they're just being who they are, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's because it's a really cool thing. Like when we're doing rehearsals with the team, one thing is that I'm always trying to communicate to them is like, it's important, like, to get the dialogue and to get into character, the emotion. But like one thing is that you, as your character, doesn't think that they're a bad person. In everyone's character, in everyone's mindset, they think that they're just them.
Normal, yeah.
Like I hate to use the word Jack, but it's like if you that kind of character, they don't think they're a Jack. Yeah. It's like the outside world that puts these labels on them, and then it gets to their head, and that feeds the ego, and that feeds like all these like this attitude. It's kind of like being oppressed, like like if you constantly keep on disturbing someone, they'll fight back kind of thing, or they'll lose their way. So one of like the themes, there's so many themes in the film, but one of them is that idea of one's presence in the society and what that does, like how one's actions can affect the society and how society's actions affect a person. So it's a very it's one of the things, I'm kind of digressing, but one of the things that I was like really keen on doing was not making a film that only a few people could watch, not making a niche film. So one of the things that I always wanted to do, even with Carnival, was it has to have this, like, you can use the word like commercial aspect, meaning that so many people can watch it, but there's all these different elements. It's an art house film because like it's a film that can be studied. It's a film that can be watched laid back. It's a film that can be like just watched over and over. It's one of those films that also like when you watch the second time, things point out more. Like, oh, that's why that happened. So it's like an art house film because there's so many, like, it's really complex in terms of the story and the characters and just breaking down. So kind of like the album that we were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mentioned this before, but the album is based off something. There's a scientist. I don't know if he's a scientist or a philosopher, but he came up with this study, right? And it was called the 5 Stages of Grief, the Kubler-Ross model. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but essentially it's like whenever someone goes through something traumatic in their life or grief, they go through the 5 stages. Everyone.
Yes.
Not necessarily in that order, but most of the time, which is there's an acronym, which is, so you go through denial.
Yeah.
Like I'll use heartbreak as an example. Let's say you get rejected by a girl. Okay, let's consider that the grief example, right? The first stage is denial. Oh no, she's just playing hard to get. She didn't reject me, right? The second part is anger. Like, how can she reject? Screw her, I don't need her.
Yeah.
The third one is bargaining. Oh, what if I change like the way I look? Will she like me then?
Yeah.
Then the one's depression. We were actually sad, right?
Yeah.
And then the acceptance. Like, shoot, I have to move on, right? So that's what the album is based off. From the beginning of the album to the end, it goes to the 5 stages.
Wow.
So this film does something similar, which I won't go into, but it has like this complex layer.
Wow.
But at the same time, I don't want it to be distracting. Where like people are like, okay, it's getting boring now. It's getting boring, or the film should never be too smart.
Yeah.
You know, like it should be the kind of film that
you don't even think too much. You can just anyone can watch.
But
it,
if someone does want to think too much, they can.
They can.
But you don't have to. Yeah.
Kind of like art. Like a painting, right?
Yeah.
Some paintings are very deep, but some paintings you
some
just
is
look at
just
it,
like you
nice.
can hang it in your house, it looks beautiful, and then others can just look on and on for hours and hours.
Wow.
That's interesting.
My next question to you is just based off your music and what you've said so far.
Yeah.
You sound like you're a really like creative genius to say, right? So in casting too, I noticed you have a lot of friends on your film.
Yeah.
Does that cause issues?
It's strange though because they weren't my friends before this film.
Ah.
Yeah, a lot of these, most of them, I think. Actually, you know what? Strangely, all of them were not my friends before this film.
Wow.
Yeah, we've become friends now. It's crazy.
Okay, nice.
So I started recruiting. So we're in pre-production right now. And pre-production started in Jan. So back in January, when I was recruiting for cast and crew, I was meeting so many different private people. I met like 200 people, 300 people. I would just like set up meetings, just go meet people, right? It's like gathering paint, and like at the end you would like choose, okay, this person would be really good here, and this person would do. And so the one thing was like, I never wanted it to be like, hey, it's my project, come work for me. It was more like, this is a project that I made, and what are you really good at, and how can you make this project better? Like I was like, yeah, this is my vision, and this is kind of what we need to do. But you're creative as a creative person. I trust your instinct to do this and like add to it, you know. So some of the people that you guys have had on this podcast last time, Ivan and Kazi, they were initially just actors, right? But, you know, getting to know Kazi more and more and becoming really good friends with her, she has such a good understanding of like urban culture and stuff, and all these kind of things. And she has a really good artistic eye as well. So she became the costume designer on the film.
Cool.
And because of how good friends we are, she also became the assistant director. You know, and he's kind of like someone who keeps the director in check when he's about to fall off the cliff. You know, and Ivan, he has a really strong background in martial arts, and he became the stunt coordinator, and he's choreographing all the fights in the film.
Nice.
So there's all these kind of like things, and but
so essentially a community project you're doing.
Yeah, and one of the things I really stress, and I think we really managed to create with this, was a feeling of family. Like us as a team, we really feel so connected, and like you know, and let's say we have the fights, we have the arguments, creative arguments, and we're like, oh no, this, but then at the end there's always that love there. And everyone who's on this project really cares about the project. It was like, that was one thing that was really important, that they have to be passionate enough to add their own touches to the project. Not like, hey, it's Inderveer's project and I'm kind of just doing my part, but they're adding to it all the time. Yeah.
Cool. I have a question. Are you an actor in the film too as well?
Yeah, I'm the main actor of the film. I mean, I don't want to say main actor because there's quite a few leads in the film.
Right.
But so like of like the 15, 16 characters, there's the primary characters, which is like 6 or 7 of them, and then one of the 7 primary characters.
Cool.
Ivan and Kazi being the other 2.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Interesting. And I saw in your last Instagram post, his name's Harmon, right?
Yeah.
Harmon, and then Ivan's Gary.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Gary was telling us a bit about his character. What is your
I
character?
was telling you about Gary.
I was telling you about Gary. Sorry.
Some people, I just call him out to Gary. What's up?
Okay. So tell us a bit about your character on the film. If you can.
I feel like if I do, I might spoil it. I'm just trying to think what I could tell.
Briefly, yes.
So it's I'll put it this way. So the genre of our film, like I said, it was a drama. It was a gangster drama. It's coming of age, but there's something called the 7 plots in literature, meaning that every book and film or story that you read can be categorized into 7 plots. There's only 7 stories that are just retold over and over. Like something like Narnia is kind of very like the quest to find something is very similar to, I think, I can't think of it, like, I don't know, Harry Potter or something, right? So like my film would fit into the category of being a tragedy. So my character, I can't say much about him, but I could say that you could compare him to something like Romeo from Romeo and Juliet, even though like that's romance in the terms of being a tragic character. Like you can compare him to like Othello, which is a Shakespeare play. You can compare him to someone like Batman. Like any tragic characters throughout film or history, you can kind of compare.
No happy ending, essentially.
Some. I mean, it's not saying that they're negative characters or they have bad lives, but it's more like their character arc or their personalities can be compared similar to those kind of characters. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I feel like if I say something about the character, the interesting thing that I can't say, which will explain why I can't say these things, is because the film, the way it's written, the structure of it is 1 hour real time. So what that means, 1 hour and a half real time. So what that means is the movie right now is estimated to be about an hour and a half. So for the audience, we're watching it and it's an hour and a half to watch the movie, it's also an hour and a half in that character's life. So the film will start at 11 a.m. and end at 12:30 p.m. So you're seeing it's like minute by minute. It's like an hour and a half of the night.
Wow.
So it's like not a film that goes from weeks to
day.
years. Yeah. So you're seeing literally an hour and a half what happens in that night. And so to talk about the character is really like talking about the film and what happens in the script.
So like this whole acting career, like was it a dream from when you were a kid, starting elementary, high school?
Yeah, I think, what's really strange is that right now I'm in that point in that period where like it's this or I die kind of thing, like it's like I literally cannot imagine doing anything else.
Yep.
Like I cannot imagine doing anything else at all. Like I have to make films and I have to act, I have to direct, I have to write, I have to tell stories, right? But when I was a kid, you always like, I think everyone feels this or thinks this, like, when you're watching a movie or you're watching Spider-Man, it's like a favorite superhero, you're like, oh, I want to play Spider-Man one day, or like, I want to be an actor, I want to be this, right? But there's like so many thoughts, like I was like, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be this. It's always been those, I always thought about a lot of things, but I don't think I necessarily, when I was young, was like constantly trying to fight to do it. I was just doing creative things just because that's what I really, really liked. In grade 8, grade 9, grade 10 is when I started. Grade 9 is when I started music, like when I just picked up my first drum kit and I just started playing, and then I learned piano after that. And when I was doing it, it was just because I loved it so much, not because I was like, if I don't do it, I won't be able to make the career out of it. It was just, I really enjoyed doing it so much, and it gave me a sense of power. I think creative work is so powerful, man. Not even for powerful in the sense that it changes people. It changes people's thinking. It can affect a person. It's so interesting. Like everyone knows art is just fiction, or art maybe is inspired by someone's life, but it's just art, right? It's not like their own life, but it still makes people cry and still makes people laugh and it makes people change. Art is what started me into becoming an artist. It wasn't necessarily just like the dream. It was also because I was so affected by the music of Hans Zimmer and the movies of Christopher Nolan. Like I was just so affected. Wow, like movies can make me feel like that. Like what if I could make someone feel like that? And then that's what really made me want to make films and get into music. And it was just this idea that like just by slightly doing this or making like a dent in the universe, or just slightly making something or creating a song can make a dent in the universe, and that can change people. Like the fact that creative work is probably, I think creative work and art is probably the only majority that has changed the world, if you really think about it. Throughout history, like creative work has probably the only thing that really has changed the world.
Okay.
From literature to books to films to the way of thought, because art of the time is a reflection of the time. It's interesting. So the society inspires the art, right? The current time, the current emotion inspires the art, and the art then changes the society, you know, like. So that's what I always think about, like, you know, like the heartbreak inspired the art, and then the art inspires the people around that time to reflect on the heartbreak.
Wow.
That's crazy, man.
That's okay.
And that's with every artist, every filmmaker, every
Right.
author, yeah.
And what age did you really figure that out and you're like, okay, I'm going to go dive in deep?
I was like a huge fan and everything, but when I was like, this is what I'm gonna do, was probably grade 11, I think.
Grade 11?
When I was like, yeah, this is like, I was in grade 11, I was like, I want to be a music composer. I want to make music for movies. You know, I want, like, someone else is gonna direct, someone else is gonna make the movie. I want to work for them, and I want to make the music, be the music composer. But throughout making, and then, but I really, even at that point, I didn't know how to do it. It was school, right?
Yeah.
And I then, I was like, okay, so all my friends are applying to Harvard and all these things for engineering. So like, what's the Harvard of music? And then I found the Berklee College of Music, and I applied, and I had to audition, and it was like High School Musical stuff, like auditioning and like paper after paper. It's like that really long audition process, and it's like I just started music 4 years ago. No way I'm gonna get in, but I was so determined to do it anyways. Like at least I won't have to look back and be like I never tried, and then I got in.
What school is that?
Berklee College of Music in
Yeah.
Boston, Massachusetts.
That's a burning desire, dude.
Yeah, it's like the best music school in the world, in comparison to Juilliard. Where like Juilliard focuses on orchestral and traditional music, Berklee is more the modern, electronic, contemporary art. And I remember, it's really funny. It was like 12 at night, the day before I knew that I was supposed to get the result of what if I got in, and I went to Twitter and everyone's like posting, oh, congrats, you got in. Thanks, I got in Berklee. And I'm like, why haven't I found out yet? I log in and it said congratulations. I screamed so loud. My dad woke up and he was so mad. But I was like, yeah, but it was such a thrilling experience, you know? Because like, I don't know, but because growing up, the way that I feel like people reacted around me or made me feel, I don't think I never got to me, but I guess it did somewhere in my head put an imprint that made me feel like, oh, I could never do it. And in that moment to be like, wow, I did it. And it was just because I believed in it for that long and kept on going. And I was like, wow. And then I couldn't go because it was too expensive for me to go. And that's like such a kick. And that's when like that real life thing hits you. You know, when you're just old enough, like, wow, so money is important. You do, you know? And then I ended up still pursuing music, but I was like, I'm not going to give up. I'm still going to do music, but I'll do it at SFU.
Yeah.
And after doing that for a year, it was very, very creatively limiting. For me at least. I found that there's a lot of things I always wanted to do in class or on assignments, and they were like, no, you should just do it this way. And I was like, okay. And then there were other times like, okay, maybe fine, like I'll keep it in school, let me just keep on doing my own thing. And it was like, I'm either putting 50 here or 50 there, nothing's on the 100%. So then I dropped out. And after dropped out, 3 months later, and I was working the album since then, and then 3 months later, last October, I released the album.
Nice.
So what I found out through making the album and releasing it and now being on this film was the path to do all that was to make films and actually, you know, like do the startup thing.
Yeah.
Like you hear a lot of people in the other side of like the art, like the science, engineering place making startups, or the business people making startups, and it's like, it's such a cool thing that you can bring over to the art world, you know? Like you as an artist can be the startup, make the production company, start working on the film, you know? I think a lot of times there's this just idea that like you have to be discovered by someone.
Yeah.
But like you can just, you know, you can just do it. I mean, look at the filmmakers we look up to. They weren't discovered. They started it.
Yeah.
So you have, you know, it's like you can be the next Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
You just have to think like that.
Definitely.
That's the way you think, right?
100%. And that goes back to what you said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take you back a couple minutes where you said, with like your environment, I think it was your environment you said,
Mm-hmm.
where people were telling you you couldn't do it or you couldn't do this,
Mm-hmm.
whatever they were telling you kind of implanted in your brain.
Yeah.
And then the fact that you said, you know, if you kept sticking to it and
Yeah.
then you got accepted, how did that, tell us a bit about that.
That's interesting. I'll kind of bring this idea of racism into that conversation. Reason being is like, I've faced it, like everyone almost, I'd say everyone has almost faced racism at one point in their life. But like that, like people saying that you can't do it, it was never, none of that though, racism or people, you know, bogging down on you, it was never the motivation to become it. Like, I'm going to show them. It was like, I knew it. It was in there. It's always in the back of your head. Like if someone says,
subconscious.
Yeah, it's in the subconscious that, oh, well, that's how people think about me. Cool. But that was never the motivation. My motivation was always, oh, this is a really good story. I have to tell the story. So it's interesting. Those things can bother you if you think about them. I don't know why they didn't bother me. They were never what motivated me was like the heartbreak. It was the pain. It was the friends leaving you. It was the betrayal. It was, like, I have to make this movie. Oh, I couldn't afford to go to Berkeley. I'm gonna go make the movie on my own. Like, it was the stories and all. It was never, the negativity of people around me that motivated me to make it. For me, at least. And I don't know why that is. Maybe because growing up, I was always so distracted easily creatively.
Yeah.
That I think what people said, like, it's not that what people's comments or things don't bother me or that they won't get to me, but I think it's like, in a weird way, the way my brain's wired, maybe I just don't prioritize them. It was always the way. It was always like, I think this is a really interesting thing I can say, which is, it has to go back to ego, which is, I think, my own reflection of myself, being self-aware of myself, like how I look to other people and how I want myself to look to other people, is probably what motivated me continuously. Meaning that if I'm heartbroken now and I'm working on this album, I want to be perceived as the heartbroken guy who became the musician who made the album, and I want to do everything to make that.
Yeah.
And now I want to be perceived as the person who's going to fight this huge cause in our community about gang violence, but make an amazing film with this amazing team, And I want to be perceived as the filmmaker who's going to do that. So I think in a weird way that's what it is.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Because
You talked about betrayal, right?
Yeah.
And you also talked about that in your album. Toast to Soup?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking about
Damn,
betrayal.
man, you really went in depth with
Yeah,
this.
dude.
Toast to Soup was the one, yeah.
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 So talk about that, so because it didn't sound like it was one person that betrayed you. It sounded like there were stories.
Oh yeah.
Bro, I'm sorry. The whole the way you made that track,
Yeah.
or that skit you want to call it?
Yeah.
Freaking awesome.
3 skits. There's Thorns and then that one.
Yeah, bro, that the structure was freaking amazing.
Thank you.
Because they're all waiting for your turn to go up to speak, but you're not there, and then someone else is telling your story for you.
Yeah.
Which is freaking so cool.
I'm so glad what I tried to do actually came across. I was like, man, maybe it's in just my head. When you make a song or you create something, you write something, and it all makes sense to you, and you're like, does it make sense if just someone else reads it?
Yeah.
Right? I'm so glad. Yeah, that was the thing. The idea was to make it in a courtroom.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of explain what the word Soup Boys means. It's not it's a slang word.
Okay.
In a language called Tanglish.
Okay.
And Tanglish is a combination between English and Tamil. And it's spoken in some parts of India.
Okay.
And and the slang Soup Boy comes from that language, and Soup Boy basically means boys who are heartbroken and can't do anything. So it's like and all these Soup Boys are gathered around in a courtroom. They're having a toast, talking about how a girl betrayed them or who got heartbroken, and they're just being like, oh, who cares? You guys know it's kind of similar to on Late Registration or College Dropout. There's these skits on his album, on Kanye's album.
Yeah,
I don't know who it is, but there's a coach and he's mentoring all these boys and I think in the skit, Kanye's the one who's not talking, and he's getting slack for bringing the cool sneakers and having the backpack, and he's telling all the boys to wear the dirty gym clothes and do this, and it's kind of like the boys in the room are saying, it's okay, screw that girl, screw that girl, right? And Inderveer's the only one who's not talking because he's busy making the album, while everyone else is just sharing the stories in a room with these boys. So that's the concept of it. And so Inderveer doesn't want to talk, and he just wants to make this album, and everyone else is just telling a story about him. So that one specifically was about my friends and not any girl or anything.
Because you said something in there, and I listened to this, dude. So you said
I'm
something
so honored, man. Thank you.
Supposedly your best friend snaked you for talking to her cousin.
Something no, but that's a very good interpretation. It's very close.
Okay.
It was basically my best friend. So there was a girl. So the girl in the skit. It's the first time I think I'm going in depth about the skit. The skit was about the girl that I really, really liked.
Okay.
Who Coolest Girl was about.
Yeah.
And so the thing that's not in the album was how I asked her out. Right? You just see me liking her and then me getting rejected by her.
Yeah.
You don't see how. And there was essentially, I had written her a poem. And this is like Inderveer in 2015.
Yeah. Because that's what she said.
Oh, she says that, right?
She says that.
I wrote her a poem, and I remember when you have best friends with 6-7 years because you're friends, they're literally your brothers, right?
Yeah.
And that friend, I had written this poem and stuff and everything, and I'd written the poem and I showed him dude, I want to give this to her. What do you think? And so that skit was saying that he snaked me out. If that makes sense. He told her all about that before I even got to tell her myself. Before I gave her the letter, because he was trying to get with that girl's cousin.
Shit.
That's what that meant. he did it because he's trying to get with that girl's cousin.
That girl's cousin.
Yeah.
So get closer to her, I guess, right?
Yeah, trying to get closer to her is like, how do I get closer to her? Let's knock off my best friend.
Wow.
So that's what that was about.
Okay.
That's a true story. She actually made fun of you in front of everyone?
Yeah, dude, the whole thing is like real. There's nothing fictional about it. Yeah.
Dang.
What was it? She made fun of you or something?
She like roasted him in front of all of her buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
sorry.
You guys like went to his eyes.
I thought we were talking about the movie. But yeah, like that was an incident. Like, see, the thing is this, like, when I was making the album, it's almost like a sound version of a movie.
Yeah.
Like, the album's like a movie, you know? It was like all these things happen, all these events, and I just spent so much structure in them. Like, how do I put that incident of me getting humiliated in front of her and all her friends into, like, kind of put into the skit, and how do I transfer? It was like a lot of it, and so that's what sort of made me realize, like, movies is where I want to be, because it's like I want to tell stories.
Right.
What's crazy is when I was working on Carnival, I was like, I had a plan. This was supposed to be a 3-part album.
Ooh.
It was going to be Carnival, and then there was going to be 2 more albums. But I was like, very quickly after Carnival, I was like, I have to make movies now. So whatever stories I want to tell on the albums, they're going to be movies. So the movies have their own albums. Monster has its own soundtrack. Yeah, you know. So I'm not skipping out on music and albums. The albums are just part of bigger projects now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So back to music, right?
Yeah.
Because I noticed there's piano, there's guitar in there. Did you compose this stuff yourself, or is someone?
Yeah, everything, dude.
Wow.
Like everything. Dude, I'll tell you how I would make these songs. So.
Wow. I'm actually shocked right now, dude, because that shit was good, bro.
Thank you so much.
Right, and a lot of people, they'll just rip it off YouTube. They'll search for like instrumentals or.
Dude, that's what I'm experiencing right now. Like you know, when you get to a certain point, people want to collaborate with you, and you know, I'm always interested in knowing what people have to bring, right?
Yeah.
And so, someone will send me something that they made, and I'm like, wow, this is so good. And then they'll tell me, oh, I just bought this beat. I'll be like, okay. You know? And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, cool, but like, I mean, it's kind of...
Because the main fire is a beat, right?
It feels insulting to a creative person who creates everything from scratch. You know? And that's different than sampling. Sampling is an art. You're still creating something from scratch, right? But like, you know, buying a beat, it's like, yeah, people have made their careers off that. But with this, what it was I was just cathartic, meaning I was just trying to get over my emotions. So when I was, you know, it was 2 years, right? So in this 2 years, you can group them in 3 months. Every 3 months I was in a different state of mind. I was depressed. I was addicted to just wanting to know what was going on in this girl's life. Other parts I was, you know, like the 5 stages of grief, right? I would just sit beside the piano and just make these songs on the piano.
Wow.
Hundreds and hundreds of recordings on my phone. And once I had made the song, I'd write the lyrics. Then I took it to my computer. Then I produced it, so it wasn't the piano anymore. Then the instruments came in. I'd play the instrument, record it, and it's crazy. Throughout this time, I was learning how to make. Like, you know, I would be producing, and then I'd like Google, how to compress vocals, and then I'd go back and make the vocals. Like, it wasn't like I knew how to make an album. I was learning how to make an album as I was making the album.
Wow. How much did your whole album cost you in total?
$0.
$0?
It's crazy. It didn't cost me anything.
What about like your personal, like because you already had a microphone, everything set up?
Well, okay, so yeah, I had to buy a mic.
Yeah.
But like, that was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
And what about software?
I used Logic Pro.
Nice. Torrents?
Yeah.
I feel you, dude.
Yeah.
I feel you.
I would just use Logic. It's like literally, like, you know, back in the 90s when you didn't have digital workstations, you know, people would have studios.
Yeah.
But now it's like, all it is, like, making music is just layering stuff.
Yeah.
So if you can do that on a computer, that's why people so young can do these things.
Bro, that's awesome.
You know,
bro.
everyone can do what I did. It's just a matter of thinking if you can.
Dude.
You know?
That's nuts. Because when I listened to it, I thought you actually studio, you know, like professional.
That was my wish, man. I was like, oh, I wish I had a studio. But then I was like, I just painted my room, set up the mic, created a little studio in my house, and it's just a laptop and a mic and headphones.
Yeah.
And I think I have a rant on this on my Instagram on one of my highlights. It's like I'm talking about how literally talent, creativity is the only thing you need, and you can actually work around a budget. Like right now, we have a budget for our film.
Yeah.
If we don't make that money, that's not stopping us from making the film.
Yeah.
We're still making the film.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, like how you said it sounded professional. That's a huge compliment to me, because that was one of the things. Like, can I make it sound professional? And just learning. You know, I don't want to learn the technical side. I have to because there's no one else.
Yeah.
But if I learned it, I learned how to make good sounding music.
Yeah.
So it like sounded good, mastering and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, and then that rant, was that the same one where you're talking about how you're an artist, not a South Asian artist?
Yeah, dude. Thanks for stalking me. I'm just joking, man. I love
Do my job, dude.
I love you for reading that. Dude, I was like, you know, the thing is, just before we talk about this, so many things that you will say will be taken out of context anytime.
Yeah.
Like, I could literally say something like, I could say, I have such a talented team, and someone's going to be like, oh, he thinks he has the most talented team.
Yeah,
you know, it's like anything I
context.
say, anything, right? So, yeah, so now to this conversation, it's like, not trying to bash on the word South Asian, like, I am South Asian, but it's like, what I found in our community is all the people, all the artists, brown artists, and the reason I say South Asian is because it's like they like to use that term on themselves, like they call themselves a South Asian artist, and at a point I start to like observe and I start to go into their work and see what they're doing, and a lot of the times I get really disappointed because their artwork gets limited to the train of thought of being a South Asian, meaning that like if there's a South Asian filmmaker, he only, and I'm not saying this is all brown filmmakers, but the so-and-so ones who call them South Asian filmmakers just want to make films that have brown people in them. It's like, that's cool, you can, but it's like, why do you have to make a film as an excuse to have brown people in it? Why don't you just make a good film and then cast whoever you want? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I was having this conversation yesterday where it's like, if you walk around as an artist saying that, you know, I'm you know, facing racism, people are saying I'm brown, I can't be an artist. If you walk around with that as your motivation, people are gonna look at that as, oh, so that's what disturbs them. You know. But if you walk around like that doesn't even bother you, it's not even part of your your character anymore. People don't associate that with you. You know. As soon as you call yourself a South Asian artist, you're literally saying I'm 50% artist, 50%. You know.
Yeah.
Whereas it should be I'm an artist, period.
Yeah.
And even if you're brown and you're just treating yourself an artist, people will just say you're an artist. People won't say you're this artist, prefix artist.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what I was talking about. It's like, just be a filmmaker. Just be this.
Yeah.
Because you know, one of the things I often hear is that like, oh dude, us South Asian us South Asian artists do so much. We make paintings, we make this, and it never gets compared to all this other work, right? All this like in Hollywood, like why aren't like brown actors being up there, or why aren't brown stories being up there? But it's like, if you constantly call it a brown story, if you just called yourself an artist, you would automatically make yourself equivalent to the greats.
Yeah.
You think Beethoven walked around calling himself a German artist? People don't even know he's German. You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. It's like, if you just are an artist, period, that's what I think you should do. Then all your brown stories, because again, that like people who have come from a South Asian culture, who parents are immigrants, their stories are going to be about that, and that's dope. That's cool. My film is about gang violence in Surrey within, you know, the Punjabi community, the South Asian community.
Yeah.
But it's not a film that only brown people can watch. Yeah. It's supposed to be a world-class film that any artist can appreciate, right? So as soon as you call yourself an artist, your brown stories become good stories. They don't just become put into a category of brown stories. And then you don't have to complain about people looking at it like a brown story. They'll look at it like just art. You know, anime, you could say, oh, it's Korean art, but people call it anime because it's so respected now, because people didn't spend time, you know, fighting for that. They just created, and people are like, wow, this is so cool. Let's put, you know, anime is a part of our pop culture now. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And you think about like there's you know, there's like this black art. Yeah. We can put it, but it's like we don't even call it that. It's just art, right? And it's sort of leaked into the music now. If you look at like the use of R&B, Jamaican hip hop beats, it's there, but we don't always call it that. Yeah. And you always think like, where's, you know, but Bollywood gets the category of Bollywood, you know. But as soon as you forget giving it these titles and names, which is kind of the movie's about, if you stop giving these people labels, they just become they just become human, like you know. And your art becomes just like every other artist.
So stop limiting yourself, right?
Stop putting labels and titles and categories, you know.
Wow.
On yourself.
Dude.
And it's interesting because these titles are given. They're giving themselves the title. It's not like someone else is calling them a South Asian artist. It's almost like they're feeling a security by calling them a South Asian artist. Yeah. I feel like there's like this. I don't know why I feel like Kanye talking about mental imprisonment, but it's like, if you in your head are stuck to the fact calling yourself a South Asian artist, it will affect how you create art. you'll be trying to think of an idea and your brain will be like, no, don't do that. That's not South Asian. And then, as soon as you free yourself of these labels.
Yeah, essentially you're saying you don't want to go like into a segregation, right?
Yeah.
You could say.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Reminds me of a Steve Jobs quote where he says, people don't know what they want until you show it to them.
Yeah.
Which is like, people are society is a result of you.
Yeah.
If you walk, like for example, no one wanted an iPhone until Steve Jobs said, "Here's an iPhone." Now everyone wants iPhone. So if you walk around saying, if you create, you can be if you walk around with the new idea, and you go long enough,
people want that.
They become becomes the new idea. Like, can't quote this: trends are always late. Right? That's what it is.
That's true.
It's another way of putting it.
Dude. Also, I had a question.
Yeah.
So, Keep Your Hands Up. Did you write that?
No, that's the only song I didn't write.
Okay.
And I didn't I didn't sing that as well. That's the only one I produced.
Okay, who is that?
That's Jacob Gabriel, and he likes to go by the name Jay Goodword. He's a spoken word poet in Vancouver.
Okay.
And this album was kind of made during the time when Black Lives Matter was happening.
Yeah.
And we found a way to sort of combine this, because I wanted the song to be like an uplifting thing, kind of talking like
motivational.
Yeah, and it was like, how do we combine this being low and heartbreak, and we combined the Black Lives Matter thing with this, and then we sort of created a song that was a mixture of the two. Yeah,
I like that.
It's very interesting. It sticks out.
Yeah, dude, because that's also one of the ones where you have to pause what you're doing and actually listen what's going on.
Yeah.
This album actually really reminded me of, but don't get gassed up, okay? Good Kid, Mad City. Have you heard of that?
I thought you were gonna say that.
Yeah.
Because really, does it?
Yeah, dude.
It's interesting. There's a lot of albums that inspired me
that
I tried to make it like, but that was never one. But that's interesting. Why do you say that?
Because if you listen to the whole album from beginning to end, right? Yeah. That was actually the first time I understood how albums worked. So maybe that's why I connected it to that. Because Kanye also did skits in the past way before Kendrick.
Yeah.
But it was that first one that kind of made me figure out, oh shoot, there's actually a story going on after each song is a lesson.
Interesting. I've learned about the structure of an album when I listened to Pimp a Butterfly. I think that one or one Kanye album. I can't think of it, but some album I think, or maybe even an Eminem album. It's one of the three.
Yeah.
I think when I was like, oh, this is how structure works, the skits and everything.
So that dude, man, and I enjoyed it so much, bro.
Also because I think that album also, my album also has these like a song's playing, now there's a skit happening, and it goes back into a song. So those albums kind of do go into places, right?
And it was perfect transitioning, and another reason why I compared to Good Kid, Mad City was, it was like, you kind of took the listener to an experience, right?
Dude, that was so important for me when I was making it. It's like, I'm so glad you're saying it, because my listener is able to just reflect on everything I was trying to do.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things. Even the instruments I was choosing, the lyrics, I was like, music is a transformative medium.
Yeah.
I think I've learned how to categorize art I think it's my own opinion on this, but I think films are make believe, where it means you can believe something even though it's a film.
Yeah.
And music is, I think, a being lost kind of medium, where as soon as you put the headphones in, you're in a different world.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I was always thinking about, how do I make it sound epic and like that. Or how do I just make this listener feel like this is their life? They're walking, that Kid Cudi song, Day and Night? That feeling of walking alone at night, being heartbroken. What's that song that they listen to and they feel like they're alone at night, So all these things, experiences, I was trying to create this experience.
And lessons, essentially. That's the key part, right? Because everyone has a story, right? But how you overcome the story.
Or how you tell the story.
That too.
That's really important. How do you tell the story? A lot of people have made the films on gang violence, right?
Yeah.
But dude, I think the story I have, I think it's a really good story, man. It's really insane. I think there's not one person who's seen the story or in the cast team, anyone outside I've been able to share the script with who's like, oh, this is they've been just blown away by the story. The thing is the way it's structured. It doesn't feel like a gang film. It doesn't feel like a Brown film. It doesn't feel like a 20-year-old made this film. It just. Yeah. Dude, the story's insane on this, and that's one thing I'm just really into, telling stories from the album to this.
Nice. Yeah. And last question concerning the album, at least that I wrote down, unless something else comes to my head, is did you actually name two names of kids? Because you specifically said that you inside a 1,000 Mile Lullaby.
Oh, that I thought you were referring to Toast.
No, 1,000 Mile Lullaby.
Yeah.
You actually said that.
Yeah.
You even named two of your future kids with the same girls.
Okay, that line, dude, I forgot my own
Dude,
lyrics.
you're exposing him on the podcast.
Yeah, bro. Yo, on the spot.
This is not story about it. No. That lyric was, it was something, dude.
I should have wrote it down,
dude. I forgot my. See, if I start singing, I'll remember it. But it was something like, it was like, so it was talking about, I even thought of so it was basically, so that song, 1,000 Mile Lullaby,
Yeah.
I'll tell you what that song, it's my favorite song, second favorite song. My favorite song is the last one. Second favorite song because that song is about that feeling of being alone, like really alone at night, and just reflecting on the fact that that girl that you like, no matter what you do, you won't be with her. And you have to accept that. That's what that song's about. And 1,000 Mile Lullaby is a lullaby to her because you guys are about to part now.
Yeah.
And he's talking about how in this time when he was thinking about you and I really liked you and I really wanted you, I was thinking about our wedding, I was thinking about our kids, and I was thinking about their names. It's not saying that I have kids.
Yeah, okay.
It's talking about how, like being in that, like, thinking about what life would be like with her and that, and then realizing, what if I knew what you looked like tonight? I might die knowing that I never knew you in life.
Yeah.
That I have to accept the fact that I will never see you again and I can't be with you, and you'll be with this other guy and you'll have kids with him. Because the song ends with this line saying, by the time I get to see your face again, you'll be cutting your baby's cake or something like that. Like,
yeah, cutting
your child's cake.
Yeah.
It's kind of saying like you'll have kids with this other guy and you have to accept that. Like that kind of pain, It goes from all the way to that childish classroom stuff to that. And I've gone through that. Like that is me transforming through that album.
So I guess, because that was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was the fourth last song. Right?
Yeah.
Right? So
Dude,
that's
you're so up on this. Actually, no, third last. No, fourth last. Yeah.
So I guess that's the stage of acceptance.
No, dude.
No?
That is depression. That's depression.
Yes,
Stage of acceptance, the last one.
The last one,
Time.
yes.
Which is me saying that, I could tell you, I could tell you how I felt.
Yep.
Oh, dude, I gotta pull up. Can I pull up the lyrics for
Yeah,
this?
of course, dude.
Dude, I forget about this stuff. Oh, man. Look how many notes I have. Dude, my phone's writing lyrics for this. Dude, this was originally a 16-track album. And then came down to 10 or 12? 12, right? You know my album better than me.
Sorry, dude.
So my favorite song is Time. Because that one, I think, really encompasses that feeling of acceptance, but that's that love that you never let go for that person, like your first love,
Yeah.
Even though you might not talk and you might hate her still, there's still that, like, she was the one who turned me into a man.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
and the song is like, while I could tell you how much I could really breathe. See, when songs are written, they don't make sense when you read them out.
You can sing them out, dude.
Dude, I don't know.
No?
Not right now. But it's basically starts about talking about how, how I felt when I was in love with you and you didn't break my heart. Right before that, I could breathe, everything was going. And it goes into my time is up and now I gotta go. But just don't remember me as your foe. Like, don't remember me as the bad guy.
Yeah.
But I gotta go.
Yeah.
And my favorite line, which is, I would rather be a slave to all this pain than have never heard of you or your name.
That was
like, I would rather have you have broken my heart, done all this, than me have never met you, because me having met you is the beauty, is the award in itself. The fact that I just met someone like you.
Yeah.
And so that song is the acceptance, but it still has that love.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude. Okay.
And did this song kind of like, sorry, last question.
Okay.
This song kind of like help you with the breakup, kind of like get over it, or were you already past
I think
that?
the making of the album and completing it got me over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Connecting question.
Yeah.
Does the girl know that this album was based on her? Have you reached out to her?
Sorry, what?
There's a girl that you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, dude.
What?
I'm just, like, one thing I think I haven't, like, in the beginning of the album how he's like a hopeless romantic, or I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm still like that.
Okay.
So like when I finished the album, I had a launch party for the album, or a launch event.
Yes.
And I actually invited her to the launch event, and it was
good.
No, she didn't come through.
Okay.
She didn't come through. But what I did was I took one of the invitations, and I signed the back of them, and I went to her house and I gave it to her. And I just thought it was more of like a way of saying, like, it's like, the album is a tribute to her. So it's more like, hey, come enjoy something I've done for you. But I could understand why she wouldn't want to be there.
Biographer.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. But yeah, then she's heard it after and stuff like that. But that's a very complicated story and stuff like that.
No worries. Maybe we'll talk about it after the pod. So, final 2 segments. First one, look at the camera.
Yeah.
Give a 60-second hustle, something you want to get off your chest that could maybe motivate somebody else that's kind of like on that lump of, trying to get past the entitlement or society or being afraid to take that leap. Or even inspiring somebody that's like a younger interviewer. Yeah. And then the second segment right after that is calling somebody else on the show. So somebody who has a passion and a grind for something and a story just like yourself.
There's so many of us out there right now who, some of us are more confused than the others and we don't really know what to do, but we're all so hungry, right? To create and get out there and tell our stories, right? And so, I think we all want fame, but we all want that fame because we want all these people to know our stories, right? We don't want our stories just to get stuck between here and there, right? And there's going to be so many hardships. Trust me, in any case or not, you might be lucky if you have less than others, but every hardship is only going to add to your art. If you can find a way to channel it positively or negatively into your work, it's only going to make it better because your stories are only as good as how real they are. So anything that happens, take it as a blessing to add to your work. For someone who's been through so much trauma, creating work, and personally, I think it's a blessing to look back, and it just makes you feel better once you actually go through it, like, wow, that's nothing now, and whatever it is, hold on to that creative thing and keep on going. And to really sum up what I'm saying, I'm going to quote Steve Jobs, which is, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So if you're crazy enough, you're like, oh man, it's impossible, you're the one who's going to do it because you're crazy enough to even think, be at that point to be creating. So that's it.
Yeah.
What are you going to call out, dude?
Thank you. Okay, I nominate Simran Johar to come on to the podcast for Vancouver Hustlers.
Okay, Simran, we're going to love to have you on. And that's the end of the podcast, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming out, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys.
Until next time, guys.
Thank you so much, guys.